Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today we're continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 75. And I would like to continue our discussions today on Vaishnava poets. Actually, as you know, we've covered a number of them in the last couple of weeks, and why? Well, once again, we can quote that famous verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila, first chapter, 195, to explain why. Kim ka vyena kaveshtasya, kim kandena danushmata, parasya hridaya lagnam, nagur nayati yachchira. What is the use of a bowman's arrow or a poet's poetry if they penetrate the heart but do not cause the head to spin? There's the answer. So today, I would like to describe the life and poetry of yet another one of the Ashtachaps, the 8 famous poets in the line of Vallabhacharya, and that is Sri Nandadas. Sri Nandadas. As with previous poets we've discussed, I found authorized information about him in Nabadas's book, Bhaktamal. We described that last week, Bhaktamal. And therein, it's written about this illustrious devotee. Sri Nandadas was always immersed in love for Lord Krishna and became very proficient in composing nectarian texts of his divine pastimes. His heart was always filled with the nectar of devotion, and he was very proficient in rhetoric and singing. He was a resident of the village Sri Rampur, and he became famous throughout the world. Despite being the best Brahmin amongst all Brahmanas, he used to render menial service to the feet of devotees of the Lord. Sri Nandadas was always immersed in describing Leelas of his beloved Lord. I thought that was a nice introduction to this devotee. So, Nandadas was born in the year 1513, as we heard, in the village of Rampur, which I checked on a map, is a small village in the greater Brajmandala area. His father's name was Jivaram, and his uncle's name was Atmaram. Now what's really, really interesting is that his elder brother was the famous Goswami Tulsidas, or very often just called Tulsidas, the author of that well-known book, Ramacharita Manasa. It's a book about Lord Ramachandra's pastimes. Now, although that book was very famous and is still popular in India today, Srila Prabhupada didn't approve of it. In a letter to my godbrother, Raktakadas, on September 6, 1969, Srila Prabhupada wrote very clearly, the Ramacharita Manasa by Goswami Tulsidas has a hint of Mayavad philosophy. He belongs to the Ramananda Sampradaya. They are a mixed-up combination of personalist and impersonalist, unquote. So apparently, Nandadas was also a devotee, a great devotee of Lord Ram. The whole family, actually. Obviously, Tulsidas was a devotee of Lord Ram. But initially, Nandadas was also a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. But later, he converted to worshipping Lord Krishna. And that's the theme of our lecture today. Just how that happened is extremely interesting. As young men, Tulsidas and Nandadas, they were studying in Benares, or Varanasi, or in ancient times it was called Kashi. Now one day, they met some sadhus who were passing through Benares on their way to Dwarka to have darshan of Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish. And eager for their association, Nandadas asked his elder brother Tulsidas for permission to join them. But again, being an exclusive devotee of Lord Ram, Tulsidas refused to give permission for Nandadas to go to Dwarka. Nevertheless, Nandadas decided to accompany the saints, telling his brother he'd return in a few months, and so they all left the next morning, those sadhus and Nandadas. But on the way, when the group reached Mathura, on their route to Dwarka, the sadhus actually decided to stay in Mathura for an extended period of time. But Nandadas, eager to visit Dwarka, he set off alone on the journey after about a week in Mathura. But he didn't get very far. He actually just got as far as Nandagram. So there's Mathura, then he entered Vrindavan, and then he came to Nandagram. And unfortunately, while he was in Nandagram, staying a couple of days there, he became attached to the wife of a very wealthy merchant. It happened when he was visiting their house while doing madhukari, begging for foodstuffs, as we have described previously sadhus do. So he knocked on the door, Nandadas, for some prasadam, when this woman, the wife of the husband of the family, who is described as extremely beautiful, answered the door. And Nandadas couldn't take his eyes off her. It's almost as if you could say love at first sight. So as a result of that one incident, he changed all his plans. And he decided to stay in Nandagram, begging for foodstuffs every day, but only at that house of that family. And he did so for months. And soon a rumor spread that a visiting sadhu to Nandagram had fallen in love with another man's wife. So because of the rumors, the husband of that woman decided to move the family from Nandagram to Gokul, where their spiritual master, Vallabhacharya, lived. Of course, there was no fault on their own, but rumors are such. He decided, we'll move, we'll go live with our spiritual master in Gokul. Now, when Nandadas got information about this idea to move to Gokul, he started following them on the day they left. In fact, he was so infatuated with this lady that the family could clearly see him following behind them from some distance away. So when they reached the banks of the Yamuna, which they had to cross over to go to Gokula, they quickly boarded a boat to cross the river. And as they plied across the river, the woman's husband gave some money to the boatman, requesting him not to take this Brahmana, Nandadas, who was following them across the river. So as a result, Nandadas couldn't cross to the other side, couldn't make it. He just sat on the shore of the Yamuna. Now later, when that family reached Gokul, they came to see their spiritual master, Vallabhacharya. And he said something to them quite amazing, actually. Listen to this. He said to them, there was a Brahmana following you. His name was Nandadas. Why didn't you take him on the boat so he could also cross over the river to come to Gokul? So the gentleman, the man of the family, he was shocked. He didn't even know this Brahmana was named Nanda. So he was thinking, how did my spiritual master know, first of all, that person was following us? What to speak of his name? So when I read that, it reminded me of the time a newspaper reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, because, how did Vallabhacharya know this? So it brought to mind a particular incident where a newspaper reporter asked Prabhupada, "Sir, you have so many disciples all over the world. How do you know if they're making progress in their spiritual lives?" So Prabhupada, he paused for a moment and he replied with a little smile, "How do I know? Krishna tells me. Krishna tells me." Hare Krishna. So meanwhile, Nandadas was sitting on the bank of the Yamuna River. It's described he was just gazing at her dark blue waters. And in doing so, he started having a change of heart. He was thinking, here I am in Vrindavan, thinking about another man's wife. Shame on me. So what did he do? He started praying to Yamuna Devi to free him from his lusty desires and awaken his love for the Lord. Now, within moments, his whole life, his whole being was transformed. And he began, it's described, experiencing ecstatic symptoms of love of God, but not for Lord Ram, but rather for Radha and Krishna. An amazing transformation took place. And upon reading that, I remembered in Nectar Devotion, chapter 13, Srila Prabhupada writes as follows, explaining how this can happen, how it did happen. Prabhupada writes, Sri Rupa Goswami has stated that 5 kinds of devotional activities, namely residing in or visiting Mathura or Vrindavan, worshipping the deity of the Lord, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, serving a devotee, and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra are so potent that even a small attachment to any one of these 5 items can arouse devotional ecstasy even in a neophyte. Hare Krishna. So for me that explains what happened to Nandadas. By the mercy of who? By the mercy of Yamuna Devi. She's part of the whole Braj Mandala. All glories to her. Actually, she, as we know, she's one of the 5 personalities who grants entrance into Vrindavan and residence in Vrindavan. So that explains it. Actually, it might be nice to recite some prayers to her because she's so much part of this lecture today in this particular pastime. Rupa Goswami writes in his book Stavamala very beautifully about Yamuna Devi. He writes, May she, Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who saves one from having to enter the city of her brother Yamaraj, the sight of whom enables the most sinful persons to cross the ocean of sin, and the sweetness of whose water charms the hearts of everyone, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who decorates the great Kandava forest with a stream of pleasant waters, who was filled with lotus flowers and dancing birds, and who blinds the terrible sins of they who desire to bathe in her, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, a drop of whose water destroys the sinful reactions of people, who creates a great flood of confidential, pure devotional service to Lord Nandana, and who brings auspiciousness to they who desire to live on her shore, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who divides the 7 oceans and 7 continents, who witnessed many of Lord Mukunda's transcendental pastimes, and whose splendor rebukes a host of sapphires, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who is decorated by the beautiful district of Mathura, who expertly protects they who follow the path of loving devotional service, and who with the playful motions of the waves that are her arms, offers respectful obeisances to Lord Padmanabha's feet, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, whose charming shores are decorated with many loving cows, who is filled with many splendid and fragrant kadamba flowers, and who is delighted to have the company of Lord Krishna's devotees, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who is filled with the warblings of thousands of joyful Malikaksha swans, who is worshipped by the Vaishnavas, Devas, Siddhas, and Kinnaras, and the slightest scent of the fragrant breeze moving on her shores stops the cycle of repeated birth and death, always purify me. May Shri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Suryadev, who is the famous, splendid, spiritual river flowing through the Bhu, Bhuva, and Svaha planets, and who burns away the greatest sins, and who is fragrant with scented ointments from Lord Krishna's transcendental body, always purify me. O lotus-eyed one, O daughter of Suryadev, O rescuer from all sins, please flood with pure devotional service that person who, reciting these 8 prayers with a cheerful heart, glorifies you, whose waves are pure and splendid, and who is accompanied by all the demigods. Hare Krishna. It's so purifying. Yamuna Maya Ki. So, while this transformation in the heart of Nandadas was taking place, Vallabhacharya asked one of his disciples to go back, cross over the Yamuna River, and bring Nandadas to his ashram. So after some time, when Nandadas arrived, he fell at the feet of Vallabhacharya, and he said, O merciful one, I have spent my life in trivial pursuits. Please take me under your shelter and help me achieve the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Hare Krishna. Now, the plot thickens in a transcendental way. A month or so later, his elder brother, Tulsidas, hearing how Nandadas, as the word spread, had dedicated his life now to Radha and Krishna, he penned a letter and sent it to him. And the letter read as follows. My dear brother, you left our Lord wrong and have started worshipping Krishna in his place. Have you gone mad? How in the world could you do such a thing? That was the letter. So you could say with a touch of humor, Nandadas wrote back, Brother, first I was devoted to Lord Ram, but Sri Krishna, who is all-powerful, came and stole my heart away. If Ram was stronger, he would not have let me go. Besides, since I have heard Krishna's sweet holy names, I've gone mad, and my eyes now swell with tears. So, after that exchange, Tulsidas decided to visit Nandadas in Vrindavan. And after searching for him for some time, he finally found him where? At Govardhan Hill, where he was singing daily to the Gopal deity, found by Sri Madhavinda Puri, because we know he's one of those famous 8 poets. Now, approaching Nandadas, Tulsidas said, My dear brother, I've come to rescue you. Please come with me. If you are interested in living in a village, then reside in Ayodhya. If you are interested to live in a holy place, then come back to Kashi. If you are interested to reside near a mountain, then reside in Chitrakoot. And if you're interested in living in a forest, then reside in Dandakaranya. Our Lord Ramachandra has purified so many places. He's a real Ram Bhakta. So, hearing this, Nandadas smiled. And it's described gazing out over the Vrindavan landscape. He spontaneously composed the following poem in Braj Bas language and sang it very sweetly. O brother, if you wish to reside near a hill, then reside next to Giri Govardhan. If you wish to reside in a village, then reside in Nandagram. If you want to reside in a city, then reside in Madhupuri, Mathura, which is an ocean of unparalleled beauty and offers boundless happiness. If you find solace by a riverside, then reside in the banks of the Yamuna River that fulfills all the loving desires of the heart. Sri Nandadas says, if you wish to dwell in a forest, then my dear brother, reside in Vrindavan Dham. I just love that reply. So then Nandadas, while he was there, he brought his brother before the Gopal deity for darshan, now known as Srinathji. Although he knew that his brother Tulsidas would only bow before his beloved Ishtadev, so a stalwart Ram Bhakta. So understanding this, as they're all gathered there, other pilgrims are there, Nandadas stood before Gopal and he prayed. He prayed. This great devotee prayed. My dear Lord, Tulsidas lowers his head only to Lord Ram. Therefore, please be merciful and appear before him as his chosen Ishtadev. So while Tulsidas and the pilgrims there are gazing at Gopal, Gopal showed his form as Lord Ramachandra just to Tulsidas. And seeing this, Tulsidas' eyes opened widely and he called out, Jai Sri Ram! Jai Sri Ram! And bowed down, did dandavats before his beloved Lord. As the pilgrims standing there were wondering, what in the world is he doing? Jai Sri Ram in front of Gopal? So seeing how this mercy upon Tulsidas was due to the prayers of Nandadas to Gopal, it reminded me of a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. He got the mercy of his brother, who by that time was a pure devotee. Happens. This verse is from 5th canto, 12th chapter, shloka number 12. Listen. My dear King Vahugana, unless one has the opportunity to smear his entire body with the dust of the lotus feet of a great devotee, one cannot realize the absolute truth. One cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing celibacy, brahmacharya, strictly following the rules and regulations of household life, leaving home as a vanapasta, accepting sannyas, or undergoing severe penances in winter. By keeping oneself submerged in water, or surrounding oneself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. The absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. And there's an instance there. And we also have that opportunity, Prabhus, because we have attained the mercy of a great devotee, Srila Prabhupada. So there's hope for us. So the next day, Tulsidas, he went back to Benares, and while Nandadas remained in Vrindavan actually for the rest of his life, writing poems and composing songs for the pleasure of Gopal up on Govardhan Hill. Some of the many poems he wrote, which are still read and sung in Vrindavan, which we may not know about, but I think in respect for him they're worth mentioning, are as follows. Ras Pancha Dhyayi, Siddhant Pancha Dhyayi, Ane Karta Manjari, Man Manjari, Rup Manjari, Ras Manjari, Vira Manjari, Banver Geet, Govardhan Leela, Shaim Sagai, Rukmini Mangal, Sudam Charit, Basha Dasham Skanda, and a certain poem called Padavali. We may never read them, but we offer our respects to him because those poems are full of nectarian shlokas and verses about Krishna and Srimati Radharani and Braj. Maybe someday someone will translate them for us. So, eventually, sometime in the year 1583, while resting on the shores of the Manasi Ganga lake on Govardhan Hill, Nandadas departed for Goloka Vrindavan with the following words on his lips. It was written down. Many devotees were there to see him pass away. These were the words on his lips in Brajbas. Deko, deko, rinagar, nat nritat kalinditat. Look at the beautiful form of Krishna dancing on the banks of the Yamuna river. Mohan pli ki, mushakani, dalkani mor mukut ki. Sarabosha mani mere far kani priye patki. May the smile of Krishna, the drooping of his peacock crown, and the swaying of his pitambar, yellow robes, always remain within my heart. Nandadas tahan gavai nipat nikat. Nandadas is present there, watching this pastime very closely while singing from his heart. And then he left. All glories to that great devotee. So I would like to finish today with just one of Nandadas's poems, a small poem, but eloquence is truth spoken concisely. It's describing the beauty of Vrindavan. He wrote, Vrindavan, who can tell its perfect beauty, its earthly counterpart a place for Krishna to make known his deeds to men, where beasts and birds, hills, groves and creepers, bushes, herbs, always lovely, are free from the bonds of time. The sun shimmers there, jewel bright, each season a spring renewed. The splendor has no end. Vrindavan is supreme amongst forests. Its beauty never wanes. The sights seen in this forest grace no other ground. As themes of verse confound the very gods of poetry alone. On a jeweled dais that stands resplendent, a lotus spreads its 16 perfect petals. Its graceful seed pod hangs above, out of which all joy is born. There, the young Lord of Braj, the mighty Prince of Love, is enthroned. Thank you, Nandadas. Thank you so much. So, Hare Krishna. So, yes, we have a few more poets, thankfully so, and we'll continue next Friday. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radharashama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Nitai Gaur Bhimanandi, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe Sharm. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, the Revealer.